Title: Bullies pick on black boy for his size, his sister's martial arts skill silenced them all. The laughter started before Marcus even reached his locker. Not the friendly kind of laughter you hear in hallways between friends. No, this was sharper, louder, the kind that echoes off metal lockers and makes your stomach twist before you even know why. Marcus Carter tightened his grip on the straps of his backpack as he walked down the hallway of Jefferson Middle School. At 13, Marcus was smaller than most boys his age. Skinny arms, narrow shoulders, and a quiet presence that often made him invisible to teachers but painfully visible to the wrong students. And unfortunately for Marcus, those students were waiting for him again. "Hey, look who's here," a voice called out. Marcus didn't need to look up. He already knew that voice. Dylan Reeves. Dylan was the opposite of Marcus in almost every way. Taller, louder, confident in a way that came from always being surrounded by friends who laughed at his jokes, even when they were cruel. Marcus kept walking, hoping maybe today they would let him pass. No such luck. Dylan stepped directly into Marcus's path, blocking the hallway like a human wall. "Well, if it isn't Tiny Carter," Dylan said with a grin. Two other boys beside him chuckled. Marcus tried to move around him. Dylan stepped sideways. "Where you rushing to?" Dylan asked. "You got somewhere important to be." Marcus swallowed and kept his voice low. "I just need to get my books." "Ooh, hear that?" one of the boys said. "He needs his books." They laughed again. Marcus felt the familiar heat rise behind his eyes, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had learned that reacting only made things worse. "Move, man," Dylan said suddenly, shoving Marcus lightly. Marcus stumbled back into the lockers. The metal clanged loudly. Students nearby turned their heads, but like most days, no one stepped in. Marcus lowered his gaze and tried again to move past them. But Dylan wasn't finished. "You know what's funny?" Dylan said. "You're in 8th grade but you look like you belong in elementary school." Another shove. Marcus's backpack slipped from one shoulder. "Maybe he forgot to grow," one boy joked. Marcus bent down to pick up the strap, hoping the moment would pass. But Dylan suddenly grabbed Marcus's backpack and lifted it easily over his head. "Hey," Marcus said, startled. Dylan shook the bag lightly. "What you got in here?" "Bricks," he mocked. The hallway erupted with laughter again. Marcus felt every pair of eyes on him. "Give it back," Marcus said quietly. Dylan tilted his head. "Or what?" Marcus didn't answer. Because he didn't have one. For years Marcus had learned something simple. Fighting back only made the bullies worse. So he stayed quiet, and that silence had become their favorite weapon. Dylan finally tossed the backpack onto the floor. It landed hard, spilling notebooks across the hallway. Marcus knelt to gather them as the bell rang. "See you later, Tiny," Dylan said casually before walking away. Marcus picked up his papers slowly. One of the pages had ripped down the side. A girl walking past paused for a moment. She looked like she might help. But then she hesitated, and kept walking. Marcus finished collecting his things and stood up, brushing dust off his notebook. The hallway emptied quickly, and just like that, the moment was over. But the feeling stayed. That afternoon, Marcus walked home alone like he usually did. His neighborhood sat only a few blocks from the school. Rows of small houses, cracked sidewalks, and basketball hoops nailed above garage doors. Kids played outside. Music drifted from open windows. Normally Marcus liked the walk home. But today he kept replaying the hallway scene in his mind. The laughter, the shoves, the way no one stepped in. By the time he reached his house, the knot in his chest had grown tighter. He opened the front door quietly. "I'm home," he called. From the kitchen came the sound of something sizzling. His mother's voice followed. "Hey baby, how was school?" Marcus forced a small smile as he stepped inside. "It was okay." His mother peeked around the corner, wooden spoon in hand. "Just okay." Marcus shrugged. "Yeah." She studied him for a moment. But before she could ask more, another voice filled the hallway. "Marcus." It was his older sister, Jada. She came jogging down the stairs two at a time. Jada Carter was 17, tall, athletic, and carried herself with a calm confidence that made people pay attention when she entered a room. Her hair was tied back in a neat bun, and she wore loose training clothes. "Did you bring my water bottle from the car?" she asked. Marcus blinked. Oh, yeah. He reached into his backpack and handed it to her. Thanks, she said, then paused. Her eyes dropped to his ripped notebook. What happened to that? Marcus froze slightly. Nothing. Jada raised an eyebrow. That looks like something. It's just. My bag fell. Jada crossed her arms. Marcus knew that look. She wasn't convinced. But before she could push further, their mother called from the kitchen. Dinner in 20 minutes. Jada nodded toward Marcus. We'll talk later, she said. Then she headed for the front door again. Marcus frowned. Where are you going? Training. Marcus forgot about the conversation for a moment. Karate. Jada grinned. Taekwondo today. Marcus watched her step outside with quick confidence. Most people didn't know this about Jada, but she had been training in martial arts for nearly 8 years. She started after a rough incident in middle school when someone tried to snatch her phone at a bus stop. Since then, she had trained almost every day. Marcus thought it was cool. But he also never imagined it would matter to him. The next morning, the sky hung gray over Jefferson Middle School. Marcus walked through the front gate slowly. He hoped maybe yesterday was just a bad day. Maybe Dylan would leave him alone. But deep down he already knew better. As he stepped into the hallway, he saw them immediately. Dylan and his 2 friends leaned against the lockers like they owned the place. And the moment Dylan spotted Marcus, the grin returned. Well, Dylan said loudly. Tiny's back. Marcus kept walking, but Dylan stepped forward again. Did you grow overnight? He mocked. The boys laughed. Marcus tried to keep moving. But Dylan grabbed the strap of his backpack again. Hold up, Dylan said. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Let go. Dylan leaned closer. You gonna make me? Another laugh from the group. Marcus felt the same helpless anger rising again. And just like yesterday, students around them slowed, watching, but not helping. Dylan gave Marcus another shove. Marcus stumbled backward. Look at him, Dylan said. Dude's built like a toothpick. Marcus clenched his fists, but he still didn't swing. Because he knew how this ended. Until suddenly, a voice cut through the hallway. Hey, it wasn't loud, but something about it made everyone pause. Dylan turned. At the far end of the hallway stood Jada. She had come to drop something off for Marcus, his lunch he had forgotten at home. But what she saw instead made her stop cold. Her eyes moved from Marcus to the 3 boys surrounding him. Dylan squinted. And who are you? Jada walked forward calmly. Marcus's eyes widened. Jada, it's fine, he said quickly. But Jada ignored him. She stopped a few feet away from Dylan. Her voice remained steady. You need to step away from my brother. Dylan laughed. Your brother? He looked Marcus up and down. That makes sense. His friend snickered. What you gonna do about it? Dylan asked. The hallway went silent. Students leaned closer. Teachers hadn't arrived yet. Everyone sensed something different was about to happen. Jada glanced at Marcus briefly. Then back at Dylan. You should walk away, she said calmly. Dylan smirked. Or what? He pushed Marcus again. That was the moment. Before anyone realized what happened, Jada moved. In one smooth motion she stepped forward, caught Dylan's wrist mid-shove, twisted gently, and shifted her weight. The movement was so quick most students didn't understand what they were seeing. But suddenly Dylan's balance vanished. And in less than 2 seconds, he was flat on the floor. Not slammed, not hurt, just completely controlled. Jada held his arm lightly in a position that made it impossible for him to move. The hallway gasped. Dylan's friends froze. Marcus stared in shock. Jada leaned slightly closer to Dylan and spoke quietly enough that only the closest students heard. I told you to walk away. Dylan tried to pull his arm back. He couldn't. The grip wasn't aggressive, but it was absolute. Students whispered all around them. Did you see that? She flipped him. No way. Jada released his arm and stepped back. Dylan scrambled to his feet, red-faced and stunned. For the first time since anyone had known him. He had no joke, no insult, no comeback, just silence. The bell rang loudly, and the entire hallway watched as Dylan grabbed his backpack and walked away. His friends followed. No laughter, no comments, just quiet. Marcus turned slowly to his sister. You just. Jada shrugged lightly. I told him to stop. Students around them stared with wide eyes. Marcus picked up his backpack slowly. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel small. And for the first time, the hallway felt very, very quiet.